Darsul Qur'an-84 English, Part 21, Surah Ahzab, Trends, total verses 73, total Ruku 9, Maudoni Surah. Today, Monday, 9th May 2022. Verses discussed 1 to 3, delivered by Professor Muhammad Abu Sadek, Bangladesh. My brothers and sisters, home and abroad, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillahi wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Nomenclature. The word Ahzab quoted in the verse number 20 of this surah is taken as the name of the surah. The time of revelation of the surah Ahzab and its background. Surah Ahzab revealed in 5th year of Hijri. There are 3 backgrounds behind the revelation of Surah Ahzab. First one, the war of Trans Ahzab occurred in 5th Hijri in Shawwal. Second, the war of Bani Qurayza occurred in 5th Hijri in Zilqa'dah. Third, the marriage of Hazrat Zainab radiyallahu anha with Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the same year of the month of Zilqa'dah. The historic background of the revelation of the Surah Ahzab. Abu Jahl gang, that is the idolaters of Makkah, Jews and the hypocrites, became courageous against the Muslims. Muslims, after the disaster in the war of Uhud, they felt ambitious to finish Islam and the Muslims. It might be imagined from the events occurred in the first year of Battle of Uhud. Sorry. As for example, first event. Even after only 2 months of the war of Uhud, the tribe of Bani Asad of Najd area tried to attack on the Medina Sharif. So, Prophet ﷺ compelled to send the army of Abu Salma to Alhamdulillah. So, Prophet ﷺ compelled to send the army of Abu Salma to dominate them. Second event, in the month of Safar of 4th Hijri, the leaders of the 2 tribes, Adal and Kara, claimed some preachers of Islam from Prophet ﷺ to preach Islam in their area. Then Prophet ﷺ sent 6 Sahaba radiyallahu ajma'in with them. But unfortunately, when they reached the area in between Jeddah and Rabeg, the related tribe leaders incited the infidel leaders of tribe of Huzaili to attack the armless preachers. They killed 4 of them 4 of the preachers and sold Khubayb ibn Adi and Jayed ibn Dasena radiallahu anhu as slave to the enemy of Muslims in Makkah. Third event. In the same month, Safar, Prophet ﷺ sent 70 Ansar Sahabi radiallahu anhu ajmain to Najd for preaching Islam in the perspective of the request of a leader of Ahmed tribe. But it was very sorry to say that they were also the victim of conspiracy on the way to Mount Valley, where 69 out of 70 were killed by a sudden attack. Luckily, only Amir radiallahu anhu escaped the attack, and on his way to flee, he killed 2 persons seeming as enemy. But later it was confirmed that these 2 persons were of the contractual tribe, so it was necessary to pay blood money to their inheritance. In that situation, when Prophet ﷺ came to Bani Nazir tribe to collect subscription of blood money, but in the meantime, that notorious tribe plotted to kill him, which was fizzled out earlier by the Jibreel alayhi salam. So Prophet ﷺ expelled the tribe from Medina Munawwara by the war of Khaybar, which occurred in the month of Rabiul Awal in 4th Hijri. On the other hand, Banu Ghatfan and Banu Salaba tribes were plotting to attack Medina in the month of Jamadiul Awal in the same year, for which Prophet ﷺ himself attempted to null and void the plot. In that way, the bitter and risky situation continued for about 7 to 8 months after the disaster in the Battle of Uhud. But the risky situation were turned within short time by the stance belief of Prophet ﷺ and his and high inspiration of sacrificing mindset of Sahaba radiallahu ajmain. In addition, financial problem became more and more grave due to the boycott of Arabian. After the disaster of Uhud, the idolaters of surrounding area become more and more, ferocious to attack. Moreover, the tribes of Jews of the Medina and the hypocrites become the home enemy. But by timely attempt of Prophet ﷺ demolished all the conspiracy, and as a result, the influence of Islam increased more as before. The wars occurred before the war of Ahzab, and a step taken by Prophet ﷺ. First step, Prophet ﷺ went out to chase the Abu Sufyan army just after next day of the war of Uhud to save the Muslims and Islam, defying the awe of injured Sahaba radiallahu ajmain in the war and mourning of martyred families, with 630 dedicated Sahaba radiallahu was buying and reached the area on the way to Mecca of area Hamrul Hamraul Asad and waited for 3 days. On the other hand, Abu Sufyan also attempted to get out for re-attacking on Medina, but he became discouraged at the advanced expedition of Prophet ﷺ and returned to Mecca. Abu Sufyan and his accomplices felt that the courage and boldness of Prophet ﷺ and his companions did not lessen a little after the disaster in the war of Uhud. They knew the advanced expedition of Prophet ﷺ as because the consolation and encouragement of Allah in various verses of Al-Quran as Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Verse number 139 of Surah Al-Imran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُّؤْمِنِينَ. O Muslims, don't faint nor grieve. You shall be the victorious if ye are sincere Muslim, sincere believer. And in the third verse of Surah Ahzab as Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. O Muslims, you trust in Allah, and Allah is the best of trustees. And in the verse number 103 of Surah Yunus as Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah says, it is my duty to protect, to help the believers in disaster. Second step, Bani Nazir tribe plotted to kill Prophet ﷺ when he came to their area to collect blood money for the two persons killed by Amir radiallahu anhu in the valley of Maun. But when the plot was fizzled on by Jibreel alayhi salam, Prophet ﷺ ordered Bani Nazir tribe to leave Medina within 10 days, but they refused to leave Medina as they were incited by the hypocritical leader Abdullah bin Ubay. So Prophet ﷺ confined the tribe by the commandment of Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, but none came there to help them. As a result, they became tired at long time exile and agreed to leave Medina, leaving everything. It is known as the War of Khaybar, and Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu was given the title of the Lion of Allah for his heroism in the War of Khaybar. Sorry. Third step. On the other hand, when Prophet ﷺ was informed that Banu Ghatfan tribe was preparing to attack on Medina, then Prophet ﷺ reached Zutrika area with an army of 400 soldiers and attacked them suddenly. So they fled away, leaving everything. Fourth step, Prophet ﷺ reached the area of Badr with 1500 dedicated Sahaba radiallahu anhu to face the challenge given by Abu Sufyan in the field of Uhud in 4th Hijri month of Shaban. On the other hand, Abu Sufyan also started for Badr with 2000 soldiers, but on the way he was informed that Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba radiallahu ajmain were in advance in expedition. Then Abu Sufyan became bewildered. As a result, he did not dare to advance. Prophet ﷺ stayed there for 8 days with the Sahaba radiallahu ajmain and earned huge money by merchandise. Abu Sufyan thought that only Quraysh idolaters can't face the challenge of Muslims as he saw the advance expedition of Prophet ﷺ and his companions. Fifth step. There were an important place of strategy, Daumatul Jandal, in between the border of Arab and Syria. The terrorists and tyrants of the area used to attack and plunder the trade mission of Iraq, Egypt, Syria, etc. Prophet ﷺ advanced with 1000 soldiers to dominate them in 5th Hijri month of Rabiul Awwal. Then the terrorists fled away from the area. As a result, the control of Muslims were completely established on whole northern area of Iraq. So all idolaters, Jews tribes understood that one or two tribes can't face the newly arised Muslim power. Hazab war, where Prophet ﷺ dominated various hostile tribes around Medina and the Quraysh idolaters. Then these defeated groups decided to invade Medina jointly. Thus, tribes of Jews and the idolaters of Mecca built up an army of about 12,000 soldiers to attack Medina. There would be a great loss for Muslims if that vast army of enemy invaded Medina suddenly. But the greatest statesman, politician, army chief, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was not unaware about the expected invasion of enemy. He used to collect the current information by his informers about activities of enemy. The Ahzab war occurred in the month of Shawwal of 5th Hijri. Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba radiallahu ajmain dug a trench in northwestern frontier of Medina within 6 days by the counsel of a new Muslim Sahaba, Salman Farsi. There were natural barrier or barricades of hillocks in the other three sides of Medina. Then Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Sahaba radiallahu ajmain ambushed, keeping the Sala mountain behind in support of the trench with 3,000 soldiers. On the other hand, the vast troops of enemy became overwhelmed and bewildered to see such a trench in the northwestern frontier of invasion. Moreover, they had no preparation for long-term confinement. As a result, they fell in suffering of no bound for want of fooding and clothing in intense cold. In that awkward position, the combined troops under agreement tried to incite the tribes of Jews were in the alliance with Muslims for treachery as they failed to cross the trench. By the way, Muslims keep their family and children with the Jew tribe Banu Qurayza under the agreement with Muslims. Seem to be safe in the southeastern frontier of Medina. Knowing this information, the combined army of enemy sent Jew leader Huay ibn Akhtab of Bani Nazir to incite the Banu Qurayza to break the alliance with the Muslims. And he convinced the Banu Qurayza to break the alliance, break the agreement with Muslims. Of course, Prophet ﷺ was not at all unaware about the conspiracy of the enemy. Having the hint of it, he sent 3 or 4 army Ansari Sahabi radiyallahu anhu to Banu Qurayza to collect secret information. He advised them to disclose the information openly if Banu Qurayza did not break the agreement, but to disclose this news secretly if they broke the agreement. But the news of breaking the alliance quickly spread out among the Muslims in Medina. So they became anxious for their safety of their family. In the meantime, the hypocrites activated in more extent. In this way, the disposition of the hypocrites exposed to public, but the sincere Muslims remained stance on their belief. In that situation, Prophet ﷺ wanted to make an agreement with Banu Ghatfan at the cost of 1/3 of the dates produced in Medina. But the vehement opposition of some leaders of Ansari Sahaba radiyallahu ajmain, it was rejected. We think it was Prophet's personal effort, not as Prophet. In the meantime, a new Muslim named Naim ibn Masood of Ashjab branch of Ghatfan tribe met with Prophet ﷺ. He said, still none know about his acceptance of Islam. So you can engage me in any purpose. Prophet ﷺ told him to try to find out any way for dispute among the hostile groups and tribes. Having instruction, Noim radiallahu anhu went to Banu Qurayza tribe. He told them Quraysh idolaters and Ghatfan tribe might retreat at the long obstruction, but there would be no benefit or loss for them. Remember, you would remain with the Muslims. Bethink what would be your fate if they retreat from the invasion. So, according to me, you should not ready to join the attack until and unless the outsider tribes ready to keep some their important persons in your custody. The leaders of Banu Qurayza believed that council of Noim radiallahu anhu and decided to claim some persons in their custody from combined tribes. Next, Noim radiallahu anhu went to the leaders of Quraysh and Ghatfan tribe and said the people of Banu Qurayza probably began to show weakness regarding the invasion. They might claim some persons from you as pawn when they would give in custody of Prophet ﷺ and make an agreement with him. So you should talk with them very cautiously, carefully. At this, the leaders of combined frontier became confused about Banu Qurayza. In that situation, they informed the Banu Qurayza it was right time to attack Medina as they were impatient for long obstruction. So you should start attack from your side and we should attack from their side suddenly. Then Banu Qurayza informed that they would not take any risk for attack unless you keep some people in our custody. At this, the leaders of combined frontier convinced that council of Noim radiallahu anhu was correct. So they refused to give some persons in custody. At this, Banu Qurayza believed that Noim radiallahu anhu gave them correct suggestion. As a result, the strategy of Noim radiallahu anhu was proved correct in all aspects, and thus the unity among the hostile groups broke up. It is important to know that deceit is lawful in strategy in war. War of trends was occurred in the cold season. Due to the obstacle of trends, the obstruction was lengthened up to 25 days. So it was difficult for hostile group to store fooding and clothing for their huge army. Moreover, mutual dispute broke up their unity, which diminished their courage and effort for war. In the meantime, one night a terrible storm with lightning and thunder began, which imposed terror and fear in the alliance of hostile group. The massacre of the storm was so violent to wiped out the tents of the enemy. In fact, it was the curse for the foe of Islam in that night of war of trance. So Allah said, I sent invisible army to help Muslims, so you did not see them. As a result, the hostile alliance fled away in the night due to the terrible massacre of the cyclone of Allah's scheme. In the next morning, when Muslim army woke up, they saw no sign of any army of the enemy in the warfield. Then Prophet said, after that defeat, the soldiers of Quraysh would never be able to attack you, but you will raid on them in future. Thus, offensive strategy reversed to Muslims. Banu Qurayza war. When Prophet ﷺ reached home from war of trance at the time of Zuhr prayer, Jibreel alayhi came and advised not to leave weapons just now. First of all, the matter of traitor Banu Qurayza should be settled. Having guidance of Allah, Prophet ﷺ declared that those who are sincere should not say Asr prayer until there is the area of Banu Qurayza. Then sent an advance contingent in the leadership of Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu to the border of Banu Qurayza. The Jews began to shower of scolding from their roof of their home to see the Muslim army. They thought that Ali radiallahu anhu came only to threat them. But within short time they were bewildered when they saw the whole army reached there by the leadership of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They became impatient after 2 to 3 weeks obstruction and surrendered to Muslims army under an agreement that both of the party would accept the verdict given by Hazrat Saad ibn Muaz, the leader of Aus tribe. The rebel Jews thought that Muaz radiallahu anhu would give the verdict in favor of them, as he was the man of their tribe. But there were bitter experience in the soft behavior with the Banu Nazir in such conflict. So he declared the verdict according to the Torah that all the active males of the Banu Qurayza should be slaughtered. Their women and children as well as their all wealth would be distributed to Muslim army. The verdict was executed in presence of Prophet ﷺ. About 400 to 500 men were killed in that event. But most of present mullahs always upheld Prophet ﷺ as soft-natured person, believing he was not only soft but also hard in case of justice. The decision was taken by Muslims was quite right quite right, no doubt, when they saw the huge collection of weapons of Banu Qurayza to attack the Muslims later. It is revealed in the verses 1 to 3 of Surah Ahzab as 1. O Prophet, keep thy duty to Allah and obey not the disbelievers and the hypocrites. Lo, Allah is knower, wise. 2. And follow that which is inspired in thee from Allah, the Lord, from Allah thy Lord. Lo, Allah is aware of what you do. And put thy trust in Allah, for Allah is sufficient as trusted. According to the description of the verses, it may be imagined that these verses were revealed after the divorce of Zainab radiallahu anha with the Zayed radiallahu anhu, the adopted child of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, and by the inspiration of Allah, felt that one of the bad tradition that the marriage of divorced wife of adopted child was forbidden for the adopted father to marry should be abolished forever. But he was confused to break the black tradition by marrying divorced Zainab radiallahu anha himself, as the disbelievers and hypocrites might raise up a refrain of criticism for breaking of a long established custom due to the jealousy of continuous success of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in preaching of Islam. So here Allah reminded Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam not to care the motivated criticism and opposition by the idolaters and hypocrites in executing the injunctions of Allah, rather to show stanceless in this regard. It could not be executed to abolish long established tradition by an ordinance. So Allah himself wedded Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Zainab radiallahu anha to end the chaos and confusion in regard forever. That is, the divorced wife of adopted son is quite lawful to marry by the adopted father. In fact, there were every possibility of arising various chaos and confusion in the family when the adopted son or daughter after grown up regarding family status and inheritance. It is Allah's verdict. Allah is the knower, wise. So every Muslim must be accepted this decree of Allah undoubtedly, unconditionally. That is, it is for us. That is, it is forced for them to execute, defying the propaganda of disbelievers and hypocrites, as they are the open foe of Muslims. He, Allah, also warned that He is observing and watching whether you are trying utmost of your ability to execute the injunctions of Allah or suffering in confusion to exclude the decree, to execute the decree of Allah. Remember, you should be summoned in the hereafter regarding regarding this regard, bethink Prophet Sallallahu and Sahaba radiallahu ajmain led family life as well as they strived for the establishment of Khilafat in the society. So every good tidings of Allah are only for the strivers in the way of Allah. In this regard, Allah consoled the Prophet Sallallahu Sahaba radiallahu ajmain and coming strivers, preachers up to doomsday that if they put their trust in Allah, then Allah is sufficient as trustee for their security and success regarding their effort for execution of Islam in the society. Finally, I ask all the people of the world to accept Islam, the complete code of life, the only chosen religion of Allah, solution of all problems of mankind. Ameen, summa ameen, summa ameen.